All right, welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. We're also doing Nemo Video. This is exciting. I'm starting a new series. I'm going to call it the Superstar Series, and I cannot think of a bigger superstar than Melissa Thibodeaux. So here's the deal. All you need to know about Melissa Thibodeaux are these two words, courtesy of Coach Ed Ogeron. Go Tigers. Go Tigers. LSU. She bleeds purple and yellow. You're much more than an LSU fanatic and fan. So I want to welcome Melissa to the show and get into your story. So thank you for coming and joining me today.
Absolutely. Anything for you, John. Seriously.
Well, thank you.
I was flattered that you asked.
Well, and I'm going to pull up for those on video. I'm going to pull up your profile so people can see. Melissa has had just incredible success with LinkedIn. And really, though, before we get into LinkedIn and everything that you do, I would love for people to kind of hear your story a little bit. So I'm going to actually turn that off because I want to focus on us and the conversation. Take us through kind of your professional journey, where you were, and then kind of when I met you and the transformation and where you're at now.
Okay. Like I said, interrupt me because once I start going, I go.
So, go Tigers. Go Tigers. I will.
So I lived in Atlanta all of my adult life, and that's where I got my start in the staffing industry. I started as a selling branch manager, and had an enormous amount of success that was very unexpected by the company. And like, I didn't know what I didn't know though. I didn't know that I was uber successful, and I'm not saying that to say, ooh, all me, but I'm just saying, that I just did what I do, and, it turned out really well. And so from there, I joined an organization, a much larger organization, as a market vice president, and had multiple branches. And so the success kept going. And then, my youngest was a sophomore in college, and I was sitting in traffic in Atlanta one day, and I just had this epiphany moment. I don't have to live here anymore because, traffic there is just insane. I mean, you can't even explain it. So from there, I started looking at opportunities close to the beach, and I found one. It took a step down. It was also it was a larger company than the company I was with before, and did that for 2.5 years, and felt like I was hitting my head against a brick wall every single day because my passion is building success, right? And then, like, from an operational perspective, handling clients well and making all that meld together. And I was, the things that I had to do to get what I needed done for my customers and my operation, literally, I felt like I would come home every day and just whine and, drink wine and drink wine. But, so then in December of 2018, I resigned, and I said, no more of this. I had no plan. I just said, I can't do this anymore. My health is deteriorating. I was getting more wrinkles and my hair was getting gray. And I was like, this is not worth my health, and right. I live on the beach. I should be happy,
Yeah.
So I did. So for the first couple of months, I kind of floundered, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I was putzing around on LinkedIn, and one day I saw you, and I looked at your profile, and I looked at you, and I don't even remember, John, how that occurred, but I think I asked you a general question via Messenger, and it just snowballed from there, and in a good way, and we really thought long and hard about engaging with you. And, all your reviews were great. I thought all your content was great. The things you said that, and, I think that one of the things you said, I don't work with people that I don't really believe that I can help. And that was very meaningful to me. And so, because I have the same philosophy. And so, anyway, I dove in with you, and, I had the biggest thing you did for me. Well, you did a lot of big things for me, but one of the biggest things, in our first one-on-one session, you interviewed me, and I was going to go one direction with my experience.
I remember this.
You remember this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And after that, in our second meeting, you said, Melissa, you were so passionate about ABC. I don't think you should go in the direction that my opinion is that you don't go in that direction, that you pursue that passionate, because every time you talk about it, you just light up. And I remember those words so clearly. And I was like, So, things that make you go,
Well, I remember this. Let me share screen here, because and we have your profile pulled up for those that are listening. But when I was looking at Melissa's background, and like, if you're looking at her LinkedIn profile, it's like where you've seen my work. And then there's like, Kia, Pepsi, Hilton, Boeing, like, all these different things. You were basically, when I interviewed you, and I'm a former journalist, so that's kind of the process I like, is like, what's your story, right? And you had just this ridiculous, like, incredible career in the staffing industry, basically. And I'll pull up one of the case studies. Like, in one instance, you took a staffing agency from $624,000 in revenue to $16 million in 48 months. And you're telling me all these stories, and you're like, but I want to go this other direction. I'm like, whoa. This is like sitting on a gold mine and wanting to build a gas station. Hold on, Thibodeaux, go Tigers. Like, wait a minute. Like, Coach O is going to come in and motivate here. So it really, the lesson for everyone listening and watching is sometimes you need that outside perspective to look in at you, your personal brand, your
fresh
career.
Eyes. Fresh
What's
eyes.
that? Yeah, fresh eyes. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so when I looked at Melissa, I was like, man, you're pivoting out onto your own. Like, you would make a killing consulting for staffing agencies because you worked inside their world. And this is kind of part of what I teach in LinkedIn Riches too. It's like, people want to know that you've walked in their shoes, you get their industry. And this is such a perfect pivot for a lot of people like Melissa, where you had a bunch of success. Now you can kind of go out on your own and be like, I know the deal. I can help fix your agency too. Like, I did it on the inside. And so let's talk about that piece, because I think that's what's been so interesting. And we pull up this case study, and you're such a good storyteller. And I'm just going to read it for people that can't, see the screen that I have pulled up. But it's one of the first posts we did was a case study,
Mm-hmm.
How you took a staffing agency from, $600,000 in revenue to 16 million, kind of a big jump, right? In 48 months.
And I won a lot of awards, but I still didn't get it, because I had never been in the staffing agency before, in the staffing industry before. So
yeah. And it's like, I'm looking at your profile. Yeah. You had all these different results, right? Just ridiculous, right? I mean, God, like, look at this. I'm just reading your thing. Grew a Florida panhandle market by 365%, tripling revenue.
That was when I moved here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Atlanta.
Listen to the storytelling though, because this is the key thing when you want to win new business on a platform like LinkedIn. You've got to demonstrate expertise along with having the social proof and credentials. So I use Melissa a lot as an example in training, videos and things like that. And people are like, well, it's so easy for her. She's just a superstar, right? Like, she just woke up and like had all these. And I'm like, well, first, like, no, Melissa works harder than anyone I know. But second, you also had to demonstrate expertise to really convince people to work with you as a consultant. And what I mean is, when Melissa put this content together with me, yes, she had all these accolades, and the headline, of course, is, hey, I took this agency from 600 grand to 16 million. But then you walked me through, you're like, well, there were 3 specific steps, right? And so we start with a story. It started with a $5 Starbucks gift card, a bustling DHL mail facility. Because I remember you telling me that story. You're like, you got to start with people, right? And like, just starting with, hey.
And by the way, like, there was a lot of stuff that happened before the $5 Starbucks gift card with that DHL deal. I'm still friends with her to this day, by the way. But
see, and so step 1, like, you're demonstrating the expertise. Step 1, relationships are everything, right? Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about that, because I feel like you're very, very good at that. Like, and this is a key thing on LinkedIn too, building rapport, one-on-one. How do you do that? Like what's your secret to building really strong relationships for business purposes?
I don't look at it like I'm building a relationship for business purposes. That's not how I look at it. I look at it, and I really believe that I am reaching out to people that I find interesting, or, that do interesting things and that I want to be a part of. And I'm just having a conversation. Hey, whatever you need to say. But it's starting a conversation and a relationship, just like you would with your next door neighbor. Hey, where are you from? What do you, that kind of thing. And I think that is so key and powerful in beginning relationship. And you have to begin that relationship and never dive in trying to sell something. You have to bring value before and illustrate credibility before you can ask for something in return. You've got to bring them something.
Repeat that for us, because that's like the key line of the whole podcast.
So sure. So before you can dive in and ask for something from them, you have to give them something. Illustrate your expertise by content. Bring some value to them in every conversation that you have, whether it's a messaging, a Zoom, or whatever. It may not benefit you directly, but it puts you in a position that they know that you know what you're talking about, and that you study, and that you know your deal, what you're doing. So
I know what you were going to say. You know your stuff. So that's it. You nailed it. You have to demonstrate expertise. Like, because Melissa, when we set things up with Melissa, she had all the credibility and accolades and awards, but she knew, like, now I have to build a relationship.
I had to start all over, basically.
You did. Like, and I remember, you told me, even from this post that we're walking through, like, because this case study we put together was demonstrating expertise, because step 2 was operations and systems and infrastructure. And you're talking about, here's what I found when I walked in. Here's what it was like. Here's what happened to fix it. Right. Like you also are a good storyteller. Like you talk about, I brought in 15-minute hourglass sand timers, and the recruiters had to use them on each call, giving them this visual reminder.
They didn't like that, by the way, but it worked.
Yeah, but like these props and these ideas. So then when your prospects were reading this, like staffing agency owners were like, oh, well, how Melissa's won all these awards, great, but what's the secret sauce? She's sharing in this case study, like, here's some of the things I did to help these recruiters achieve. And so that's
there's a lot more things in between the lines that you don't put out there, because that is part of the secret sauce. Mm-hmm. But you put just enough out there that is compelling, and it makes them want to interface with you.
Yeah. And there's a quick win in that. It's like you share one quick example of like doing the hourglass timers and the purpose of it to kind of, not let a call just drag on and on and on, and like, get off of this. Like, it's not going
Operational
anywhere.
Efficiency was my goal, and that's my goal with most every agency, because they don't see what they don't see, so sometimes.
Yeah. And it's what I love about it too, Melissa, is it's a simple story-based tip where they're like, oh, I can see that at the desk. I can see the little sand timer. And,
word picture.
And it's like, oh, that makes sense. I want to learn more about her. So tell me a little bit about how, so when obviously you've had massive success with LinkedIn, you've got a great client-facing profile, you've published a lot of content, not just the content I helped you with, but I'm looking through, you've got a lot of articles, right? So you've got one on 7 reasons math isn't necessary to sell a staffing agency or sell a staffing agency strategy. Sorry. I'm getting all excited reading your headlines. Here's a good one. Case study, winning an exclusive staffing contract with a $2 billion organization.
That was my toughest ever. This one was the toughest ever. And I kind of make light of it in this article in the beginning, but it was the hardest thing, but I wanted it so much. And here's the interesting thing about this, how the world, things come back. So my I have a current client that I just started working with a couple of weeks ago, and their major client is this one.
Mm.
And so when I traveled to their location last week, I was able to go into this client facility because they're huge. They're like an $11 billion a year organization.
Wow.
So I was able to go into their Virginia location and know exactly what was going on. I mean, when you know your industry, I mean, you're going to run into people like that, you know? So that helped a lot with this client, or with my new client.
Yeah. And that's just more credibility, more experience, staying in your lane, knowing your world. But I love your storytelling here. Like, so again, it's the headline for those listening: case study, winning an exclusive staffing contract with a $2 billion organization.
They were 2 billion at that time.
Now they're 11.
11.
Jeez. Okay. Yeah. They're doing okay.
And it's because of everything I did for them.
Well, of course. So, but what I love about this is, see how client facing and niche that headline is, because right, Melissa's not worried about impressing everyone. She's worried about impressing people that own staffing agencies that would love and kill for that kind of contract. And it's a case study. So it's promising expertise and knowledge and illustrating credibility. And then she says, these 3 concepts, so you're going to get 3 tips, will lead to consistent winning, guaranteed. And then I love the storytelling you used. It started with a cold call. Reading between the spoken lines, I could hear the faintest whisper of need. That's all I needed.
You have to listen. I mean, to hear that. I mean, sometimes it's not it's what they don't say that you're listening for, you know?
What do you think? You know, you don't have a background as like a writer and a journalist, right?
No, I just love to write.
So what goes in for you to create this? Because this is really good content, like no joke. Like, so a lot of people I talk to, that's where they really struggle. Consultants and coaches, like I don't have a background. I'm a former journalist, so it's easy for me, but like you love to write, but like, what goes into when you sit down, what goes into how you put a post like this together?
I put myself back in that moment mentally. I put it back. I mean, I literally go back into that moment and I just bring myself all the way through it. And, you know, of course you don't want to put all of the stuff in there, you don't want to put all that in there, but, you know, that I remember that moment when I was walking back to my car, because I knew after that first meeting with a cold call, I knew I was going to win that account eventually. Now it took me over a year, but I got it, you know, but I was so excited, but, you know, I just kind of kept it at bay. But so anyway, to answer your question, I put myself back in that moment and really get in touch with how I was feeling and, you know, creatively put that into words. I mean, that's the only thing I can say. I mean, think about it. Like when you met with whoever, what were you thinking during that moment? What happened? Was there something that's jumped out at you that said, you know, that was noteworthy, that's worth putting into an article, into a paragraph here? And then what happened after that? And then, you know, all of the, you know, I can look back now and think how funny it was when she said she was going to she threw my proposal in the trash, which she did.
Wow.
Yeah. Difficult personality. Let me paint you a picture. So that's, you know, it was very difficult. You know, the person that I had to win over was very, very
crotchety is the word we like to use here, apparently.
Yes.
But I love Melissa follows a great formula for creating client attracting content. And that is this: a personal story plus the business lesson equals the content. So
and
Melissa's
a little bit of humor.
And a little bit of
humor.
humor.
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know,
right.
Just, yeah. And paint a picture.
That's it. I was going to say, it's like a scene. It's like a movie scene. You can see her walk into the car. You can understand, you know, see the person throwing in the trash. And then, but also now there's these 3 concepts, right? There's pleasant persistence, right?
Can I throw one more thing in there?
Of course.
The other thing that helps me with this is I am legitimately passionate about what I do. And I'm not sharing these things simply to win business. I'm sharing these things because I think they're interesting.
Mm.
And number one. Number two, I'm sharing it because, it's kind of funny. I mean, if you read it, and it turned out to be one of my biggest accounts ever. And so, it's not, don't write something with the purpose of winning business. Write something, well, the ultimate goal is winning business, but, write it, with what you want to be read. What do you want to be, what do you want people to know about this crazy situation?
I think it's true. The passion, the transparency, the enthusiasm, the authenticity of really good content comes through, and people will respond to that, whether it's the written word, whether it's a podcast, whether it's video, not just the actual like tips or expertise you share. It's also, you hit on a key thing, Melissa, which is your passion for this. Like, man, she's so passionate about this. I would love to get her in front of our team, right? Like coaching them up. And so let's talk about your podcast, because you mentioned too, and I'm on your Spreaker page, but I think you've got one on your profile you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I have to move my
Trenches, screen. The Holy Grail and Contagious Cultures.
That one's a good one.
Were you talking about the helicopter?
Okay, so the gospel according to, you're right on it.
Oh, right here, I see it.
According to my largest client. Yeah, now they were actually my largest client, not the other one, but this one was my largest.
Okay.
So this is a transcript, I think. Of the podcast. And what I didn't know before I went into this podcast, so the podcast was done with the general manager of one of the facilities. So I service 3 of the facilities for this company in my Atlanta area. And, some of the things he said, now coming up with that title, actually I had gone to church the day before and
yeah, there you go.
And I was like, the gospel according to Luke. No. The gospel according to my largest client.
I love
it. So staffing success is extremely difficult to win in an account. Once you get the business, that's when the real hard work starts. So with this particular client, there were 3 other agencies in there because they needed a lot of headcount. And so I had 2 other competitors, and I'm so competitive. I wanted to throw those other 2 out. I wanted to push them out, and I did. And so what he told me that day on that podcast was something I did not know during my work there, was that they were about to be shut down by the Department of State. Now, this is a company that is regulated by the FAA.
Oh, wow.
And they were having some real efficiency issues and error issues. And what he said to me, was the best compliment I've ever gotten. And so he said, what you got, and he was talking about me and my team. And by then I had thrown out the other 2 agencies. They were
I love it. Kick to the curb. Yeah.
So just backstory.
Yeah.
What he said to me was, what you guys accomplished in that facility was unbelievable. And you helped us you helped save us from being shut down by the Department of State. And I didn't know that at that time, that they were under that kind of pressure. I remember people running around like chickens with their head cut off. And I'm like, God, what is going on here? These people are high stress people, But I didn't let it bother me. I just, kept doing my thing and making sure we were as effective as we could be. That's a great story. And that's one of my favorite stories, actually. I have several, but that's one of my favorites.
That's a great one. And again, it's story, so you can remember it. And you paint vivid scenes. So, before we run out of time, what advice would you give to a a coach, a consultant, a small business owner who wants to replicate the success that you've had, not only using LinkedIn, but even with running your business? Like what would be your biggest kind of couple pieces of advice for those folks?
Don't lose your passion. I mean, because passion is where it's at. I mean, if it's not, and passion is a really strong word. Um, you know, the way that I keep myself going and interested is the different clients. And it is so exciting to me to go into a staffing organization and be able to pick apart where the gaps are and what needs to happen. In fact, I'm writing a synopsis right now and a strategy and an overview for the client that I visited last week. And that is so exciting to me, to be able to go in and make a difference. So to answer your question, don't get discouraged. I mean, I've had moments where I was like, oh gosh, this is a lot of work, and so, you begin to lose that a little bit, but then that's the moment when you have to go back on and like, just go back into your processes that you, John, teach, and rediscover it. Read articles. Like I get, I'm a member of SHRM, which is a Society for Human Resource Management, and the ASA, which is the American Staffing Association. And I get articles from them all the time. Now, we are in a very strange labor climate right now, but even before this, like I read constantly. I keep my information flowing, and so that keeps me passionate. And so I start reading these articles and I think, oh, I could do that with so-and-so, or, you know what I mean? So, and, you've been great. I know that I've emailed you a couple of times in moments of, oh God, John, I am about to throw this client against the wall because and I'm so frustrated. And, I just asked you, and in 3 sentences, bam, I was fixed.
Good.
I mean, so yeah, so that's, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
It does. Like there's 2 key things I heard there. One is obviously passion and enthusiasm is critical. So you got to be doing stuff you love. But the other piece that I think is really smart, and this explains why you create so much great content, is you're always learning. Like you're always educating yourself, you're reading, you're consuming, and it does work. Like just this morning, I was listening to an audiobook on a walk and I'm like, oh, that gives me 3 ideas for different podcast episodes. Like,
yeah,
I'm going to riff on this
exactly.
concept because I have a story about it,
Exactly.
and then I can marry the story to the concept and bring some value. And so I think that's great advice. And that's, people always say, well, how do I come up with content ideas? And that's part of it.
The other thing too, John, not to interrupt you, but is my industry, as many other industries, are changing dramatically right now, with their tech stacks and their all of those, their technology and the way that they do things. And so you have to keep on top of that stuff. I mean, I can't rest on the laurels of when I won those contracts. I can't rest on that. Yes, those are great stories, but I have to stay in front of what's going on. And so by reading this content delivered by other people, I'm like, okay, so that's happening. And here's how I can spin that with, what I already know to work well, So, and so your content evolves with, industry and industry changes and, the world and, everything that's going on. So, I can't stress how important that is, because you don't want to seem irrelevant, and you always have to stay relevant and on top of the latest thing that's going, and that will probably pass in 6 months, but you got to prove that about it and that, you can talk about it and implement it. So
I love it. Let me dive into one more topic before we run out of time. I just thought of this and I'm curious because this is probably the number one question I get from coaches and consultants in particular is, how do I price my services? How do I get paid what I'm really worth? And I'm not asking you to say, this is what I charge. I'm asking,
Oh, no.
no, that like, yeah. Cause yeah, you're working with $1 billion companies. So like, I get it. But I mean, how do you, when you go into that proposal, that consultation, how do you build in your value? How do you price yourself so that you're getting what you're worth?
So, that took me a while to master. And after the first year, when I had to pay a huge amount to Uncle Sam because I didn't hold out what I should be holding out, I learned that I needed to get that into my numbers, So what I did was I took what I wanted to make per year. And that first started with my income at my highest point. And so I just divided that out by, 52 weeks and then 40 hours a week. And I just did the math. And then I did a percentage markup for, this. And then I did encompassing don't forget all the little things that you do. I mean, all of the little, all the emails and all that, because there are going to be things that you have to do that you're not going to be able to bill for,
right,
or is not part of your program. So, I charge travel time. I mean, like last week, my travel was a nightmare because of all the weird flight stuff going on. And I had multiple canceled flights and connections, and it was an all-day affair. I lost 2 full days, and so make sure your time is valuable, and you've got to, display that.
That's huge. Yeah. And I think too, one of the things is how you brand yourself. And I think Melissa's done a masterful job. When you look at her online content, LinkedIn, everything else, like you've made it clear, like you're the high-end brand, like your level of experience, your accolades, your accomplishments, people should expect when they look at your content and what you've done she's not going to be $1, like, and I think that's part of how you put yourself together online. But I think also Melissa's bringing in a lot of great points, which is like, you've got to really compensate for all those different little things that aren't included and the time it takes, the travel time, the
little things that you can't bill for that are not in the proposal or not in the contract. Make sure you account for those, even though you're not putting them in black and white. Not that you're being dishonest, but I mean, there are little things that you do that the client doesn't realize. Take your time, because when I send an email to somebody, I think it through. I don't just blah, 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 it's something. If I have to answer a question, I'm going to give them the best answer I can, which means I might have to do a little studying or whatever, and so that takes time,
and having your head in their business is not like, I mean, thinking about it all the time. I totally relate to all this. So,
oh gosh,
thank you for coming on. Before I let you go, where can people find you online? So the podcast is called Staffing Confidential.
Staffing Agency Confidential. You named it, so you should remember.
I'm the worst. I'm not editing this. We're not Staffing Agency Confidential. It's a hell of a show.
John, you were so great.
You worked with me on that. I don't expect you to remember
my podcast name.
I remember you being like, I love this song from The Cure. Do you still use that intro?
Yeah.
Okay. I love that instrumental from The Cure. And then the artwork turned out great. Yeah, I remember it all. Staffing Agency Confidential. So you can find that on your favorite pod. Listen to, even if you're not in the staffing space, I think Melissa does a great job. You can hear the interviewing and the storytelling, and I think you can pick up a lot. Where else should people go online to find you?
So LinkedIn, and you can search, my email address is Melissa@Staff Acumen, like business acumen, staffacumen.com. LinkedIn. Now my last name is difficult, but it's it's actually my maiden name is my LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn/n/M McAllister, and that's McAllister. M as for Melissa, and then McAllister.
I love it. I love it. And
I'm working on getting my website back up. I changed my company name because I felt it was more appropriate. So I'm working on getting that squared away. So it'll be back up. Staffacumen.com eventually, like probably in the next month or so.
And more importantly, we know where you're going to be on Saturdays in the fall. You're going to be LSU head to toe. Do you how many games a year do you go to?
At least 3 or 4. I mean, home games. Now, I will not step foot in Tuscaloosa. I'm sorry. I just won't. I mean, and I'm sorry, Alabama fans. I don't not like you. It's a thing. I mean, after the whole Nick Saban debacle on Christmas Eve one year, I won't do it.
I love this SEC football trash talk. I could do that. We should have done the whole podcast on that.
You just keep talking to me, and I can.
LSU and Bama. Let's go. Oh, go Tigers.
Oh gosh, somebody's spraying my windows. Can you hear that?
Yeah, you're fine. It's probably Nick Saban. He's upset. Yeah, he's on to you. Well,
it's out there.
Melissa, thank you so much for your time on Nemo Radio.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate
it was an honor and a pleasure, and I hope to talk to you soon.